in Benue, we had reports over the course of the weekend how hundreds of humans were burnt alive in their sleep, in their homes. Eyewitness reports that has been documented reported people sharing how they attacked from 10:45 p.m. in the night, and they were there up until 2 a.m. when the police came to their rescue. We saw videos of bodies, videos of charred bodies. And you could see the youths going to the street protesting. They said they are standing on the graves of their fathers, of their mothers, you know. And every time we talk about the violence in the Middle East, not only are they losing their lives, they're losing their food. There was a report, Very Dark Man did a report about this as well.
Yes.
He went to the local government area, and he shared videos, live videos of, you could even see the fire coming. It was in Yellowater Goma local government area, and you could see some of them. There was a store. The food was burnt. In fact, there was also a report of a man who was reportedly the richest man in Yellowater community, and the man had lost his brother, who is a pharmacist, who was a trained pharmacist. The man had lost his. So it's not just losing your family member, you're also losing your source of income. It's a sad day. It's a sad time for Nigeria. It's really sad.
Very sad, Olive. We had the Pope. The Pope had come out yesterday to speak against the death of over 200 persons in the state. Prior to that, the governor of the state had been crying. Not just crying, but he had been screaming. In short, we talked about Benue State last week. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. We talked about it again, if I can recall, last month. And just last week, the governor had said that he's tired, in quotes, even though he didn't mention the word tired, but he said, listen, they've been doing all they can, but he was directing his fingers to those at the National Assembly and government. In other words, he was saying that it seems like these attacks are coming from these places, because one would wonder, why would a governor go as far as even saying, listen, I'm talking to everybody there, it seems you have a hand in this. And why is he saying that? The reason is because when you have tried every single thing you can just to ensure that you douse the tension, stop the killings, and it's not working, then where else do you go to? But let's break this Benue State conversation down. In as much as it's sad, it's gory. I couldn't watch the videos, by the way.
I tried, and the first few seconds I couldn't.
I mean, we must also warn our viewers, the images you might see on the screen there could be very disturbing, so please take note. We apologize, but it's a true situation of things, and we would also like to mention that the Pope had spoken about. Let's take the video of the Pope very quickly and see what the Pope had to say about this.
Nella notte tra il 13 e il 14 giugno, nella città di Yellowater, nell'area amministrativa locale di Guma, nello stato di Benue, in Nigeria, si è verificato un terribile massacro in cui circa 200 persone sono state uccise con estrema crudeltà, la maggior parte delle quali erano sfollati interni, ospitati dalla missione cattolica locale. Prego affinché la sicurezza, la giustizia e la pace prevalgano in Nigeria, paese amato e così colpito da varie forme di violenza. E prego in modo particolare per le comunità cristiane rurali dello Stato di Benue, che incessantemente sono stati vittime della violenza.
So there you have the Pope talking about the situation. This got a few Nigerians triggered because they felt that the Pope had spoken even before the president spoke. So it was, you know, some hours later, then we now got a presser from the president coming from the SSA, which is Mr. Byron Onuga. He came out to say that the president has condemned the act, and then he has called for, he said the statement was enough is enough, was the head, and then he said enough is enough.
It's distressing to see what's happening.
And so on.
He's also directed security agencies fish out the perpetrators behind this dastardly act. The question is, how exactly are these security agents going to fish them out? Because this is not the first time. It feels like we hear a situation, there's renewed outrage. After the outrage, it dies down, and then we go to business as usual, and then there's another attack, renewed outrage. It was just last week we had a professor join us to talk to us about how Benue State has suffered these attacks and how there have been people who have lived in IDP camps for the past 2 decades.
Yes.
I remember him saying,
Yes.
so over 2 decades is over 20 years. Imagine people being born in the IDP camp and being over 20 years, not having known a place to call home other than the IDP camp. So I think that if we keep quiet, if we keep silent in the face of injustice, then we're as terrible as the perpetrators of this injustice as well. Nigerians will continue to speak up. We should continue to speak up and mount pressure. There we have it. That's the statement from the president. He says, I've been briefed on the senseless bloodletting in Benue State. Enough is enough. I've directed his security agencies to act decisively, arrest perpetrators of these evil acts on all sides of the conflict and prosecute them. Political and community leaders in Benue State must act responsibly and avoid inflammatory utterances that could further increase tensions and killings. This is a time for Governor Alia to act as a statesman and immediately lead the process of dialogue and reconciliation that will bring peace to Benue. Our people must live in peace, and it is possible when leaders across the divides work together in harmony and differences are identified and addressed with fairness, openness, and justice, signed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So he's shifted a lot of responsibilities to Governor Hyacinth Alia. So the question is, who are the people that he needs to lead the process of dialogue and reconciliation with? Who are the necessary parties? Why has that not been done before now? If that's an opportunity, if that's a possibility to curb the attacks happening in the northeastern part of Nigeria, why hasn't this happened? Why is that call happening now? And will this really have any effect? Remember how during President Buhari's time, we would hear, oh, he has directed security agencies to end it now, and that's the end. We don't hear anything from it again. So what the next steps are, I think that's what we need to find out what the next steps are.
Absolutely. I mean, you're right. The president is the commander-in-chief. So whether we like it or not, he has the final authority. And what he's simply done here is he has recognized the severity of this issue. He has gone further to ensure that he transfers power to those in charge, which in this case happens to be the governor of the state. He has said, listen, I need you to do every single thing you can. What I read from that presser, or that press release for me, simply indicates that the governor now has the wherewithal, the right to go further and say, listen, okay, fine. He can also talk to the military, he can talk to the police, and then ensures that he galvanizes them to do all they can. But this is a video that came out while the president called him. This is also from the governor's camp. But let's take a look and listen to what was being said in the conversation between the governor of Benue State and the, in quotes, purported call from #1 citizen President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Yes, sir. We had called the all state stakeholders, but there's nothing wrong in calling it again. We called that through to TIF, and we would still go ahead and call another one. The peace process that the TIF initiated is in progress, but with this later and this mandate again, we still go ahead and call all the very major stakeholders again. Yes, sir. We will. All right, so I thank you so very much for your time and above all, for all the support you give us. I will appreciate on behalf of the people of the state. Thank you, Your Excellency.
So that's the video there from Governor Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia.
And I mean, there's also those who have been pointing fingers at him that he's being complicit, because they said, you cannot say that there are people who are sponsoring these attacks in your state without naming them. So if you're saying that there are politicians and they're members of the National Assembly that are sponsoring these attacks, then you should be ready to name them. So there have been those who've been asking for him to name them, and there seems to be some sort of a rift between him and the Secretary of the Federation. So we're waiting to see how this turns out, but those bodies, those lives, they're Nigerians. They're not more or less Nigerian than the rest of us who are alive. And those lives demand an atonement. What will be an atonement? Nothing will measure up, really. But what will remotely compensate will be that the perpetrators of this act are found, arrested, made to face the law, and that this does not repeat itself again. Unfortunately, I don't know if I really have high hopes in that regard.
That's where the hope stands still, because you've heard before that those who are rumored to carry out these dastard acts are said to be foreigners. They are said to be people who don't live within the same area or space. They just come in, carry out the acts, and then they move away. And they come at different times. There are even times where these acts are carried out according to reports, and then even when the security operatives are somewhere else, these acts are happening in another location. So it's a complex situation. However, it's something that needs to be nipped in the bud immediately. And we've seen this move starting from this weekend. We're going to see what it would look like from Monday, especially today, up until Friday. Hopefully, we'll see if there will be any other attack. Now that you have the security operatives, you have the police, you have the army, and everyone is gathered together to see how they can actually bring peace to Benue. But then again, our hearts go out to all those who have lost their loved ones. It's a precarious situation. It's a tough situation you'd rather not be in, because you cannot imagine how a state would move forward if you wake up every morning and you hear, oh, they've killed someone you used to know in another area or a street, and then you hear again that, oh, they attacked this place. So the question you ask yourself is, am I even safe? You know, how would you go about your businesses? How would you walk around freely? And then again, like the videos you're going to see in the course of our conversation later on Breakfast Central, people who came out to protest were even tear-gassed. That's what. So they came out to protest the killings, and then the police came and tear-gassed them and ensured that they were no longer there. And they were saying, why all of this? We are here for a particular reason. We expect that the governor comes out and addresses us. We expect that those in security will come out and say, listen, we understand what you're going through. Give us 24 hours and we're going to share a report. And this is where we all stand.
The question is, I do not know that they have such clear, direct plan on how to combat insecurity in Benue State, because if you remember, when the governor was talking about these insecurity issues and talking about those behind it, he did say that it's a bit confusing how they attack. They come in the night and they disappear. Nobody is able to trace them. So I don't know if they have a very clear picture on what exactly is going on, or a clear picture on how to nip this. You know, it's no longer a case of nipping it in the bud, because it's grown beyond the bud. But a way to stop this, I don't know that they have a clear picture, and they don't probably want to overpromise and underdeliver. But I would say that it's important. We saw in Borno State, when Borno had its own situation, and you know there were these attacks and people were killed, the governor went there personally. The governor stayed there against the better judgment, against what some termed his better judgment, because they advised him that it wasn't safe for you to do this. But he went into these communities, he slept in these communities, empathized with them in a way to not just build morale on the part of the soldiers that are consistently putting themselves in harm's way fighting insecurity, but also to let the citizens, the community members know that they're not alone and the governor is with them. So I think a way to communicate a sense of empathy, a sense of togetherness, and to make the people feel like they're not alone, that's some sort of disconnect that we can see here. Beyond all these emotional expectations of how the governor or the president should respond, what we want is action. Who are the people behind the senseless killings in Benue State? Why have they not yet been fished out? Why do we keep having repeat incidences? The people in the Middle Eastern part of Nigeria are not less Nigerian than us. So we'll continue to speak up for them. And we pray for the families who are losing, who have lost loved ones, that they find the fortitude to bear this loss.
Absolutely. There are calls also for celebrities who to speak up. But I remember one celebrity who had spoken up 2 months ago. I'm talking about Timaya. Timaya had spoken up using his tweets to talk about the precarious, the bad situation of things in Benue State. He had spoken up. But another celebrity who has spoken up is Two-Face as well. He did put out a video where he said the killings are, he's from there, and he talked about how bad the situation is, why the killings are persistent, and so on and so forth. So Don't forget our man too, who joined us 2 months ago, Sergey Ibrahim. Did I say 2 months? Just last week.
Maybe like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. I mean, he went there and he also mentioned some of the things that people were saying. So is it still a herders and farmers clash? Some have said it has evolved from that. And is there a religious angle to it? Thank you.
Because we've also seen Christians getting agitated and feeling like this might be tainted by some form of religious attacks. Amnesty International has called that there be investigation and that justice be granted. Speaking of public figures who have spoken about this, Nathaniel Bassey also posted about this on his page as well, and has lent his voice to the cry. We continue. It's a collective responsibility. We all must speak about Benue State, but it is sad, despicable, heartbreaking, and no words can really convey the amount of grief that as a nation we should carry for Benue State. But another thing is, while we're talking about the lives that have been unfortunately terminated in Benue State, part of the reason why Nigerians feel aggrieved in some measure is that they feel like we're playing more politics rather than tackling a number of the issues that are happening head on. Just yesterday, the APC in a high-level stakeholder meeting burst into some form of chaos. Why? Because there was an endorsement of the president for 2027 and an overt non-mentioning of the vice president's name as well. And this led to a lot of chaos. You could see the exchange of blows. Well, maybe, I don't know, but it got a bit physical now. Let me give you the backstory. So there was a high-level meeting of APC stakeholders in North-East on Sunday, and then they perceived a slight against Vice President Shettima. The meeting held in Gombe State, and it brought key figures from the ruling party from across the region, including ministers, lawmakers, governors, national party leaders. Now, APC National Chairman Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje led a delegation of top officials to the gathering. Trouble began when Mustafa Salihu, the APC's National Vice Chairman North-East, publicly endorsed President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for a second term. However, in his address, he made no mention of Vice President Shettima, himself a prominent son of the North-East. This omission did not go unnoticed, and as soon as he concluded his remarks, just like you can see in the video, aggrieved delegates began hurling insults, threatening physical confrontation. Security operatives quickly intervened and escorted him out of the venue to prevent further escalation. In an attempt to douse this, Alhaji Bukar Dalori, the Deputy National Chairman North, addressed the gathering and issued a joint endorsement of both President Tinubu and Vice President Shettima for a second term. However, despite this reconciliation move, it was not okay for them. They continued. They also now had to escort Dalori out of the hall under security protection. It's really a sad story. Again, politics upon politics. Let's take a listen.
Wow. Drama in the center. The same center everybody is trying to connect to.
Aligning themselves with the center.
The center now is now, what's that English word?
Disaligned.
Disaligning.
You know why? Because in the famous words of a certain writer, things fall apart, the center cannot hold. There are too many people into the center, so the center can no longer hold.
Is this an implosion that we're starting to see?
No, it's just politics, politicking.
I do hear that, I mean, take a look at them. I had to take away his agbada and look at the speed.
Wow.
What? We do hear that security operatives also had to ensure that the protection of the APC chairman, Ganduje, was paramount. As you can see, they were about to, also give him a taste of how they felt, just as they gave other members of the party who had no choice than to escape using security guards. But the point is, the controversy, as you've rightly mentioned, Olive, started with the fact that they endorsed President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for a second term, and they failed to mention Kashim Shettima.
But the issue is that somebody else, the deputy, came up and tried to douse the tension, and now did an endorsement of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima. Shouldn't that have been enough? Because that seemed to not be enough.
Well, they also say that it's allegedly that even the Borno State governor, while he was talking, also didn't fully mention Kashim Shettima in that conversation. Now, if you date back to why that may have held water or held sway, remember that the vice president was also governor of that same state. And there's been a little bit of fracas, whether you like it or not, in terms of security architecture, money spent, developmental infrastructure, whether you like it or not. Borno has also been a center in terms of conversation between insecurity and the likes. So it's a whole lot. But then again, this is a North-East coming together of trying to ensure that the campaigns will kick off soon. And I dare say on this program here and now, that when an APC spokesperson joined us here on Breakfast Central just 2 weeks ago, I remember asking him clearly that, are you sure that governance is not being let go or loose, or is not being, handled at the forefront? Rather, the focus has now been on politicking.
But that's it now. That's why a number of Nigerians are feeling that way.
He attacked, he said, no, don't say that. And he told me, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to mince words so that you can...
No, but you're not the one that's saying it. You're reflecting the thoughts of Nigerians.
Exactly.
We've heard people who say that they're not as bothered about governance, about the state of the economy, as much as who comes into office and who comes into power. But then again, the question is the reaction. Was it commensurate to the action? Okay, there was a deliberate omission. You went ahead, you got upset.
They didn't hear it from the horse's mouth.
So they feel, that's what I'm saying, that they said it was a deliberate omission, the chairman. But his deputy came and tried to rectify it.
I don't know this, but did I say I don't know? What I know is the people, reactions are stating that the people were expecting to hear directly from the horse's mouth, which is the chairman, mentioning that it is as usual, the two persons in whom they had voted.
But is that not an assumption? Is that not an assumption that if it's just like saying, if someone's saying Breakfast Central, I'm not thinking Joe, Olive, and Benga. So if they're saying, the host of Breakfast Central, automatically I would assume
that
they're
what
thinking...
is the host of Breakfast Central, Olive, and they leave out Joe?
Well, I don't know, but I get where you're coming.
You see, Olive, there's no smoke without fire. About a few months ago, there were statements that the vice president and the president had issues. And we can state it here. There are papers and newspapers, which we took here as well on the paper review, that also said that, that said that the vice president, they were seemingly trying to mention if there were issues between the vice president and the president in terms of them meeting and so on and so forth. So these could be rumors. But then again, like people say, my people will say there's no smoke without fire, because if they weren't rumors, why would they be fighting? You understand? Why would they be fighting? They wouldn't be fighting. They would just say, okay, fine, that's it. But then again, whatever it is, we are just witnesses, and we are just looking at what the situation truly is. But that convention, like they say, it had to take the security operatives to ensure that they protected a few personalities.
You know what it reminded me of?
And ensure that they were safely.
Do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the National Assembly. Remember the days? Thankfully, we've not had so much of that drama in recent times.
Okay.
But remember the days when they used to hurl chairs, and some of the State House of Assembly as well, where somebody would come and steal the maize and run out. But, funny as it sounds, I would look forward to the time when we can play politics with some measure of decorum. Everybody has a right to decide what makes them aggrieved, and it should be addressed. That's not to downplay anyone's concerns, but it could have been handled in different ways, in a completely different way. But let's move away from politics. And now just mention to you that the police have extended the tinted glass permit deadline to the 12th of course. Remember that there was an announcement about the tinted glass, and those of you who have factory-fitted tinted glasses, you might need to get a tint glass permit. They have said it's moving up until the 12th, so you can register digitally. They say the reason why they're doing this is because tinted glasses have often been used for kidnapping and criminal activities. The question some would ask is, what's the issue when it comes to those cars that automatically, because in 2025, a number of cars straight from the factory already come with tinted glasses. Do they still need to get tinted glass permits? Anyway, that's all that we have this morning for you on Wake Up Conversation.